Inspired by my ancestors who no longer here. Their spirit lives inside of us, it didn't disappear. I just do this out of love, I don't do this out of fear. Liberation looking radical and queer.
Welcome to the second episode of Mitigation Media. My guest today is Greg. He's an activist, an artist, a human being living in the Berkeley area. We connected through Clean Air LA, an org that I'm working on getting going here. And I knew whatever the conversation we had today, Greg was going to be cool. We were going to have some cool stuff to talk about. So, Greg, what's up?
Not much, man. Just want to mention I also got my master's in ethnic studies and my BA in American studies. Just a little scholarly background. Because I did it. You know what I'm saying? Proud of it.
Respect. And so I'll remind the audience, I'm Dustin. I go by he, they pronouns, and I'll let you introduce yourself, Greg.
Yeah, I'm Greg. He, him. Yeah, man. I don't really know how to introduce. I'm not good at introducing myself, but I'm from Berkeley. That's the way something comes up. I'm from Berkeley. Yeah, I just talk about how I met you. I feel like I met you through Twitter. I met you through Twitter because last year at some point, nobody was talking about anything that had to do with COVID or pandemics or anything at all. And so I started following people who did. And like somewhere along the way, he became one of those people. And yeah, I could tell that you were kind of similar energy that I was on. And you like to talk about music also and also the political shit and also this. And I was like, okay, I could kind of get on that wave too. And so I naturally had a vibe with you on there. And then I hit you up when I thought I was moving to LA.
Well, you were
tapped in on that. I was in LA. I was staying with a friend. And we had tapped in just being mutuals on Twitter and being like, what's up, man? I can tell that you're down to have a conversation about this shit. You want to have a conversation about it? For sure. And so that's how we ended up kind of like having one of these, like just hopped on the computer and had to talk. So that was like how it first started out. So yeah.
Yeah, let's acknowledge kind of like our shared base reality. And like it's an improv term that like is what we use in improv to kind of agree where we are, and if we're all aliens on a spaceship. Okay, well, in our shared reality on Earth, me and Greg currently agree. Let's see, there's an ongoing pandemic, correct? Would you agree with that?
The baseline, yep.
Ongoing pandemic,
right there with you.
Some sort of like late stage end game capitalism. Multiple government genocides going on in multiple countries.
Yeah, increasing fascism. Yeah, ecocide, every side.
The government has limited our ability to access this information in social media for some of it and for tools for other stuff. For mitigating the pandemic, for instance, our wastewater tracking disappears. Our access to masks for free doesn't exist. We got to pay for masks. Our access to tests will get shipped to you. So,
the conversation itself is stigmatized. You're not allowed to talk about it socially with people. Like we police each other even harsher than government can police sometimes.
And so we're having this conversation because I think you and I both agree we should be normalizing these conversations.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Because the only way to exist in a shared reality is to go, hey, can we talk about all these things happening around us and not pretend they're not happening?
Yeah. I mean, I guess one thing I can say about like just who I am is professionally at least, is I was recently an academic counselor in higher ed at a couple of different universities in the Bay. And that helps. I want to bring that up because it helps paint my trajectory with this. I also I left that role I was as an academic counselor working with young people because I felt like it demanded of me to be complicit in gaslighting young people who I was trying to provide support and guidance and counsel to. And I was not okay with being in a leadership position, particularly of Black undergrads in higher ed, to be in a leadership role, not feeling like we're being completely transparent with the health mitigation and everything as an institution. And that places me in this unfortunate part of me in this place like having to uphold some kind of image or like navigate me not doing that and then being adversarial with the people that everybody. So it's just like, I'm not trying to really do all that. I think I know when the energy ain't right and I need to step away. And also I have an experience in history of growing up gaslit within a family situation. So I know, and I'm hardwired, and I know what it feels like when people start to omit information and start to like talk about things in language that obfuscates and like, hides different things. And so you can participate and act and behave in certain ways that aren't cool, but you're going to do it anyway. So it's just like, all that shit conspired to have me be like, I need to step away. And like having to work through all that shit during the pandemic, early stages of the pandemic, was just a recipe and a setup for burnout anyway,
Were you working? So the pandemic hit, were you working as a counselor when the pandemic hit?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
and then when did you finally decide to step away?
Man, I think it was like 2022 or 23, it started to blur together to be out of starve and all that. Because as soon as I left my job as an academic counselor, I was interviewing and becoming getting hired as a consultant on documentary film with HBO. And so it was all kinds of stuff going on. And I was also I had stepped away from one of my university positions in LA and apply for disability and do all this stuff around burnout, depression, and it's just it wasn't getting no help. And so I just kind of faded away from that job and into the other one. Weird.
And so I just want to point out, you're painting a picture of an inability and an unwillingness to perpetuate kind of the trauma of gaslighting onto the next generation that you experienced. You were kind of like, hey, I'm not willing to do that in my position at this school to the next generation. And that's kind of what, and I feel like I'm with you. I agree wholeheartedly.
I mean, every position I've ever had, pretty much, I've worked with young people since my first job at the Child Watch at Downtown Berkeley YMCA. I've been working with young people. I've been doing this grassroots organizing activism stuff since high school, middle school. And it was always youth empowerment, youth advocacy, youth this, youth discovering your finding your voice, excavating and standing on what you believe and doing all that kind of stuff. So having that, and then a background also of just radical politics and background in American studies is my university degree, African American studies and ethnic studies master's. I'm coming at this with a particular politics. I'm here to be in solidarity with the young people I'm working with, and I'm placing a hierarchical institution, but that wants to talk about flattened hierarchy, but it's not operating. They love their ideas. Which is, so I forgot where I was going, but.
Well, I think for me, it's that, because it's the hardest thing at this point in the pandemic for me is the next generation, and the next generation being the next generation is my biggest issue with the pandemic currently, because the next generation is being lied to so wholeheartedly, but also being actively infected over and over again with no agency to speak up, because all the adults are just going, well, this is what I was told, so this is what you're told, and you have no power to change that as a kid.
And you know what I was tripping off? As a person who's always worked with, even the film I was in was about young people and identifying as mixed race and mixed heritage, whatever.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah.
Let's just tell the audience. So you worked on a Kumail Bell. It turned into a 1-hour film. It was maybe going to be a series called 1000% Me.
Yeah, 1000% Me growing up mixed.
And I watched it recently. It's great. You're in it. Your cousins in it?
My niece is in it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I loved it because it made me address my own examples of I'm mixed race, and it's something that was denied in my culture growing up. I'm Latino, but I don't present Latino, but I am. And so I loved it. And so I'm curious, you kind of got pulled into that. I'm curious, A, what was that experience? And B, like, what did mitigations look like at that point?
That experience, my goodness, that experience was so many things, man. Like, it's a movie about one of my core identities that it has, like, I've navigated through a trauma healing relationship my entire life up until like, and then got invited to consult on that movie at like a couple years into a pandemic. I mean, there's a lot, there's a lot to navigate. I'm also doing it as a consultant. I'm a consultant on the film. I'm also in the film with my niece. So I'm like in an uncle role as well. And like, so that's the whole thing. I'm like, that becomes the central role because I'm like, my job is now to like, is bigger than the documentary and my consultation on it. It's about navigating, helping my niece navigate safe and healthily through it. This is this really big experience that I've never even experienced before. So let me make sure you're all like thought about as well as I can think about you through this experience. And speaking of that, like mitigations were taken on set, like we were required to go when they still, and it was still, so it must have been, I don't know, people know time better than me, but like 2022 maybe, where it was still like you could drive up and get a test from like, that was Kaiser had a situation set up or such and such had a situation set up. So we were going to that, get tested with the PCR thing. And then you would have to get cleared before you went to set where there was masks and mitigation supplies and all that kind of stuff. And people were masked. I can't remember all that, like who was masked, how was that, but masks were present. It was a thing unless you were like everybody's masked unless you was on camera or in the scene or something.
So it's wild.
That was like a real thing.
That was like 2 years ago. And like that still exists maybe on some specific sets, maybe in Hollywood, but I haven't been on many sets lately, but I think most of it is gone.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's a trip. I mean, cause even as the movie was coming out, like that was 2023, like spring, it was like, okay, this is about to, like, I'm about to go to see it debuted at the Berkeley Pacific Film Archives for the SF Film Festival or whatever, and also at MoMA, and I'm like, and it's in this weird in between stage where it's like people have stopped masking, but some people do, and sometimes it says it's like suggested on the invite, and sometimes it doesn't say it, and then sometimes it says required, but then you show up and nobody's in it. It's just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm finna do or supposed to do, or it's just, and then it's like, and then for me on some personal stuff where it's just like, I'm involved with like a movie that's got to do with HBO and it's like connected to somebody who is a known person in public. And then it's like, am I trying to like show face to like maintain a relationship or like show face, and like, is somebody putting the unspoken expectation that I need to show up in a certain type of way? How the fuck do I need to show up? But it's like all this shit going through my head and like all this type of stuff. And I remember going to the debut and I was like fighting them out, like I'm gonna map and da. But it's also like, I'm like with my family who don't talk about none of that shit. Like I'm having to do all this stuff in front of them and all these people I'm not usually around. It's like, it's a big thing in my head and it's hard for me to stand out. These things, this is all part of the process of having to like work through all this mitigation and taking precautions through the gaslighting. But like seeing another family that was involved with the movie and like then both be parents masked up and their kids masked out, I was like, felt more comfortable. I was like, okay, I was like one of the few people up in their mask, and then somebody who was like associated with film was also masked, and other people were and weren't. And so I was just like, oh no. So it was a lot to navigate and have to hold up. And so just thinking about the experience and even the difference between like the university experience that was like making us go back to like it was like a return to campus policy, and it was like we had been working remotely and all of a sudden it's like, well, we need you to go back once per week and now twice and it just kept on going, and it was like, well, are you supposed to mask while you're there? Are we supposed to have tables outside? it was all kinds of stuff like that, and there was pushback, and it was a wild time, man. It's a wild time.
Well, and like, a lot of stories there. So like, first one I want to say is like the going to the premiere and seeing other people, like, to me that speaks to the like, oh yeah, it's like, oh, it only takes one other person in the room to make you feel a little more comfortable, right? And like, I try to be the person who's like, hey man, I'm gonna wear a mask indoors anywhere I am, and I hope if someone sees me, they're like, oh, if they're not wearing a mask, it gives them the comfort to want to put a mask. If they are wearing a mask, I just hope that they feel a little less alone. And like, in the simplest sense, that's why I started this podcast. I started this podcast because I want to be able to go, hey, if you're listening to this, like, me and Greg exist in the same world as you if you feel lonely when you're wearing a mask in public.
Yeah. And because it ain't talked about, and it's only really ever talked about in like these ways that have been so heavily stigmatized, it makes you think, it's like it automatically posits you if you still take precautions as crazy or other than, and it just immediately otherizes you. And so you otherize a motherfucker, you distance yourself in their humanity from you. So it's like, okay, then so you inherently you have to like pretend that you're tolerant or like I'm okay that you mask or some shit like that. Like, so you're some benevolent motherfucker that's like, oh, it's okay. You ain't special because I don't know. It's just like, it brings up a lot of feelings, but it's just like, it automatically creates you as an other, which we do in all kinds of other shit. But yeah, so, but to have these conversations show us that I'm like, look, bro, I'm a normal motherfucker like anybody else trying to navigate this shit. I'm just honest about the shit and trying to confront it realistically. And not just gonna land on a stance and just believe that shit forever moving forward is always going to be the automatic response.
And like, that makes me think about kind of the importance of operating as a mitigator in multiple spaces, because it gives not just like an awareness to the people who aren't mitigators. So like, I know you're a sports guy, and like, I don't know, you're a music guy, and like me, I'm a music guy. Like, so it's like, I exist in some of these communities where it's like, there's no other mitigators. I'm the only person masking, testing, still living in a way where I'm centered in disability justice because I want to protect the lives of disabled people. And I know we're all one infection away from potentially being vulnerable. We all are all vulnerable, and we're only one infection away from being more disabled than we maybe already are. And so like, existing in these multiple spaces gives that signal boost to say, hey, like, oh, I know that. Like, once somebody knows a mitigator, hey, I know Dustin, so like, the otherness exists less. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? Like, trying to like, hey, oh, like, it's like, oh, I know one black guy, so the black guys are less scary to me now if I was, in rural wherever, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh, now I know one mitigator, and so mitigators feel less threatening to me. They're not going to give me COVID. Like, right? We're the last people who are going to give people COVID.
Yeah. Like, it's just that trauma response where you just pin your fear on the person that's telling you the thing that you're scared of.
Yeah.
We're not the rule.
And like, I know I just kind of said that, but like, can we kind of maybe move into a little bit of like, yeah, what is it at this point to be a mixed race guy walking around Berkeley, the only guy in a mask? Or maybe not, I'm projecting there. I don't know, maybe there's a couple people in masks. You can tell me.
Yeah, I don't know. I identify as black. I also identify as mixed race, mixed heritage. I actually don't even know if I was identified as mixed race. Mixed heritage, I think I identify closer with. Mixed race has always been like a weird ass thing. Even as a consultant on the second documentary, I was like, these are things I was saying. Like, I don't even know if I never identified with the term biracial, like, like, if we're going to break it down racially, like, what the fuck am I for real? And I'm not going to send my blood to 23andMe. So we're going to, it's up for debate. And it's often a widely debated thing, my identity by other people. But I identify as black and African heritage. Yeah.
And our whole point is it doesn't matter, right? It's like, it matters to us in terms
it matters and it don't.
And it doesn't, it doesn't, right? Like, we can connect on any level, but like, I don't need to know exactly your fucking 23andMe to know who you are.
Right. That part. Yeah. Nah. I mean, So one of the things, as a Black person who's still taking precautions and masking through this world that has completely stigmatized and othered masks and precautions and things like that, and basically isolated anybody that's COVID conscious or already disabled or immunocompromised and all these types of things. It's fucking weird. It's fucking isolating. It's like, it's been all the things. It's been every single thing it could have been. It's been all the things and all the emotions. But I think the thing that took it over the edge, though, was I think that the thing that took it over the edge was the mask ban. And okay, like, it was all like, you know, we can feel like, woe is me, and like, oh, they took away all the mitigations, and we critiquing from the systemic oppression part of this whole shit, which is what it is. You know, insurance companies holding biopharmaceuticals, holding everybody hostage, and yeah, all that. But like, fuck, where was I going?
You're talking about kind of the other being othered as a masker and a mitigator.
Oh yeah, when it's like, all right, well, now you fucking criminalizing me, and I'm already criminalized with a Black person walking through the motherfucking world. I'm already criminalized, and so now you're trying to ban this, and you already gaslighting here and making everybody believe like it ain't real. I believe that it's real, and I know that it's real, and I read the research that tells me that it reflects that it's real. I speak and I listen to people who are suffering who also reflect that it's real. So it's all real to me. But then you start criminalizing your ability to protect yourself from this thing that's real that you're telling us that isn't. Like, I'm going to have a really upset response to that. Like, fuck that shit. You really trying to criminalize me. And I'm about to be upset at all the motherfuckers who are willingly, complicitly going along with the gaslighting of this shit ain't that fucking dangerous, and this shit ain't a threat, and this shit ain't da-da-da-da-da. Because now I'm just got, because my mind is somebody who's a fucking historian and a critical historian, race theory, and all this type of shit. Like, I just immediately start thinking about fucking all the like genocides and colonialism and imperialism and the use of fucking infection as a way to control and decimate populations. And also I think about the complicity in neoliberalism and Nazi Germany and it's like people who would always choose their comfort and their fear over their love, and be willing to hit the button on the gas chamber because they were complicit enough and didn't want to see the people suffering. And I'm just like, that's as real as it gets to me. And I'm just like, it's like you making me hold all this information just by myself, and I'm just, all the still guards are just starting to spill off at this point. Like, like I can't contain all this shit without just having to dump it out at some point. Like, I'm gonna have to spill it on mitigation media or wherever the fuck I'm gonna spill it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just, yeah.
Well,
I think people are just so fucking terrified. People are so terrified that they decided that it was just a cold, and the government told them and like ease their fear around that with the vaccine, and then stopping talking about it. And then now even the people who, I can see this, people that are starting to slowly blink their eyes back open. And it's fucking terrifying to like wake back up a year and a fucking half later or whatever, whenever you stop paying attention and to something that you thought was a cold and that you've been talking about as a cold for the past few years. And then you realize there's some shit that's comparable and maybe even more fucking crazy than fucking AIDS, like in your goddamn system. Like, that's some terrifying shit. And then especially if you got kids and you just been like trying to thug yourself through this shit and send them to school and do all this shit. And because you have to, systemically you fucking have to, and go to work and do all this shit. Like, it's a fucked up foul situation. And it's understandable with motherfuckers who already don't want to face their own personal traumas day to day prior to the pandemic, don't want to face this whole new profound litany of shit on top of them too. It makes sense. But it's like, it's to our own clear detriment collectively.
Well, and like, you're speaking to the pressures of capitalism forcing a lot of the population to just be in survival mode always and not be able to question a single thing and just go, okay, well, I need to put my kids back in school because I need to pay my rent, because I need to feed my kids, because I need to pay my whatever. And, you know, your Twitter handle rings true. And we haven't said it yet, but your Twitter handle is Trapitalism.
Yeah, man. Mm-hmm. All the trap. Every fucking single way you try to go. Trap.
And it's 1,000 billion% true. Like, it's, and the way, I think I was waking up to kind of the horrors of capitalism about 4 years before the pandemic hit. And I was looking around to kind of going, who is this what I want to be doing with my life? Like, do I want to just be like perpetuating this and normalizing this? And the answer was obviously no.
Right.
But it took the pandemic to hit for me to be able to have the confidence to go, oh, okay, no, I need to stand on the ground that is my morals, because I'm looking around and I don't agree with what everyone's agreeing on at this point.
Yeah. Wow. That's definitely been it's definitely been a time to re-engage like the fucking moralities that you stand on and integrity that you stand on and really what you believe in and really what you're willing to confront and grapple. Because I mean, that's all part of this process too. It's just a willingness or unwillingness to engage certain parts of reality that push your discomfort. And yeah, I mean, like, that's when I started to back away. I mean, this is a whole part of the story too. It's like I started to back away from hella friendships when it became clear that people were unwilling to have conversations about the things that were pertinent and critical to our lives and well-being, and also the political landscape. And like, I had created communities my whole life around people who are willing to talk about and engage critically these topics in ourselves and try to work on our blind spots. And I mean, and I was raised in Berkeley around a lot of radical educators and artists and activists and former like Black Panthers and movement people, a lot of movement people. And so like I was steeped in this. I already fucking was born wanting to change the goddamn world. And so like, and then I was like, happened to be placed in this fucking, so, it's like fucking Berkeley, California, man. I like was raised in this shit. Like, there's a lot of shit going on. Oakland, California, so a lot of shit going on. Frisco, all this shit. And then like having these radical educators in middle school, in fucking high school. And then I go to fucking college and I go to UC Santa Cruz. I got like educators like George Lipsett talking about the possessive investment in whiteness, and Angela Davis up there, and Gina Dent, Trisha Rose, and all these motherfucking powerhouse, motherfucking critical theorists, and all these fucking brilliant ass minds and beautiful minds. And Tina Hattiker, Nefertiti Tadior, like History of Consciousness Department. Yeah, there's a lot of shit going on. A lot of people, a lot of radical activism going down there. If I take all this radical activism from the Bay and then bring it down to fucking Santa Cruz, was already, so it's a lot. We've been cultivating this shit for a long time. And then I'm watching those motherfuckers be unwilling to engage the shit that is real. And like, for a myriad of reasons. There's so many different reasons. I'm like, the pandemic hit with motherfuckers in their mid to late 30s and early 40s now. And like, fools were like deciding biological clocks was ticking. Do I have kids this now or never? Do I do this shit? I don't know. What the fuck is the world? I need to do my thing. Parents are dying and sick. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like motherfuckers are like trying to navigate a crazy ass inflation landscape, and the shit is out of control. And like, what? I'm in my mama's garage right now because I'm broke and jobless and unemployed, trying to do a career change in the midst of collapse. It's a wild time right now, man. It's a wild, and the wildest part to me is when don't nobody want to talk about it no more. That's when shit, cause that's how I grew up. I grew up gaslit, and didn't nobody want to talk about the shit that was pertinent to the most critical topics in the house. And so I had and that's what it is too. It's like the politics of it and how I grew up hardwired to understand what gaslighting is. And like, I know what it feels like in my fucking spirit, in my bones, in my blood. Like, I know what it feels like. And this is what it feels like. And I feel like sometimes, I don't know, I'm going to call on it, but like, I feel like I was made for this moment in a certain way, where it's just like I was given this gaslit situation I had to fucking figure out and navigate. Then I was facing this fucking political fucking historic hotbed of like, free speech and by the revolutionary critical thought and all this type of shit and activism. And then I create this whole, and then part of this cultivating this community and artistically trying to express it back out to motherfuckers who won't listen. And like, just try to maintain this radical like stance across decades. And then you meet this time where it's like, even those motherfuckers can't even hold that line. It's a wild time, and it's breaking a lot of people.
Yeah. And hearing that kind of, dude, you spit bars. That's great. I love it. But like, hearing that makes me think about, we're the same age. We're both in our early 40s. I'm 41. You're 40, I think. And we were raised in this generation of kind of like, oh, well, you can be whatever you want, you can do whatever you want. And like the second like I decided that advocating for disabled people's lives and health, oh no, I can't do whatever I want anymore because no one wants to talk to me anymore.
Right, yeah, nice, real. No, I'm so glad you brought it back to that because that's what I want to focus on too, where it's like, I did on radical, blah, 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 shit. But like, I was still hella fucking unprivy and naive and ignorant as fuck to disability justice and shit. You know, things happen in different times and different literatures emerge and take over and like dominate at different times or whatever. But when I was going through all that shit, it wasn't really all up in my face like that. And like, as an abled motherfucker, like had my own ableist and kind of a lot of shit going on too. But it was like, when the pandemic hit, I'm just a motherfucker who sees patterns and just can fucking read some shit, read the writing on the wall where it's just like, all right, it's a fucking deadly, disabling pandemic that's knocking people out every fucking where I live. And then it's also like, when I'm hearing about all these like people like talking about disability justice and all this type of shit, I'm just like, how the fuck? And then also thinking about just like capitalism and like liberation and how the fuck and like capitalism like needs your body to exploit and work you to death and like work you to death until you can't. It's just extracting all the resources out of your body like it extracts all the resources from the land. And so it's like, if you don't center our actual bodies and be like, and tell capitalism I can't work at the pace of white supremacy anymore. Like you have to. That requires that you have to work at a different pace and like a different speed. You have to approach time completely differently, and like, and you have to it throws everything in the question. It throws everything in the question because it's literally the antithesis of what capitalism demands to sustain itself. And so it's like, I was like, you can't really have a liberation praxis or theory or whatever without centering the people who need the most like care and nurturing in our society. Like to have some kind of like framework where you can build liberation without that. It seems that shit is wild at this point. So it's just like, okay, how you gonna build your revolution while you leave half the community behind? It's basically how, as simple as it's been for me for the past few years now. It's like, all right, you were revolutionary, but you don't care about all these motherfuckers though. That seems very revolutionary to me.
Do you remember kind of like any moments where that kind of stuff clicked for you? Because like, I know for me personally, like I know there was a moment that clicked in terms of kind of like me realizing, oh, kind of like I realized the vaccine fight of the unvaxxed versus vaxxed was so false because I had a best friend who couldn't get vaccinated. And so my best friend couldn't get vaccinated because of their health status. And so I was left kind of going, well, everybody's fighting and blaming the unvaxxed people, but I don't know half, but like there's a large percentage of the people who are not getting vaccinated that literally can't. And so how are we going to continue to protect those people's health and lives as we continue the world where this deadly disease to them is still very real and still disabling to most of us? Like, I have many people in my circle at this point that are suffering from long COVID for multiple degrees. I have a best friend who died of COVID. Like, and I'm sure you have the same. You must know people.
That's what I can say exclusively. The shit that around my age, and you know, I went to a funeral with my family member that had a cardiac arrest with, like, nobody said it was COVID. You know what I'm saying? But it's like they're young people, so.
Yeah, and like, you know, each week more data comes out where it's like, oh, you know, cardiovascular and all these like, you know, things that are the data continues to pile up in favor of the mitigators, in my opinion, obviously as mitigator. And like, I remember in 2020 for me, I was like, I might just be masking for the rest of my life. And I think by accepting that in my brain at 2020, it made it easier for me to just kind of continue to march forward.
Yeah, my trajectory was a lot different, man. It was like, I was on it really tough. I thought that in the first ever TikTok I made, I was talking about my like personal journey to COVID-19 consciousness or whatever. Like, I just like, yeah, it was fucking weird. It was, I was on this shit hella tough for like 2020, 2021. And then I had like bubbles too. When it started to get confusing with like the vax and relax, I think, and like, because then it was like people could go every different way with it, it seems like. And then once it started, it's like, and then also in between, I was mostly on my shit, and then I would cut it to like, all right, well, these homies, I'll go see them, and then that's me just seeing them, and I guess whoever they saw, but I'm just seeing them though. Shit like that, you know, it's like you like trying to figure out what risk is when you don't know what the risk is. Like,
well, and we're also the generation that was raised in, you know, AIDS and condoms, and so like for me, that jump was an easy. Oh, it's like, hey, well, like I was gonna wear a condom because I didn't want to have sex with everybody that everybody else was having sex with. So the same thing for me. It was like, oh, I'll wear a mask because I don't want to breathe what everybody else is breathing.
yeah, yeah. And then another thing was like my cousin had just got out of a 20-year sentence, and like I was like, I'm still gonna do some things with him because I ain't gotten to for 20 years, and so I'm gonna go. If he goes and celebrate New Year and this shit, I'm about to go. I'm gonna leave early and go late, but I'm gonna go and do shit. So there were some things like that happened. But I think I would say in like what the fuck year is it?
It's 2024.
I would say like mid 2023 is when I started to really like solidify like my understanding of what the shit really is to me now, and like, okay. And also I'm somebody like who done so much research. I'm like, I'm gonna wait for some data to start piling up before I can start really feeling like confirmed and asserted in my fucking decision. Like, and it started piling up. Really, it was like, before it was even all the studies, it was like, it was Reddit and it was Twitter. And it was just like, literally, I was going into the search bar on like Twitter in like 2023 spring or winter, or even like early part of 2023. Like whenever the hospital stopped reporting numbers. Because, okay, all my history was being gaslit. It's like, look, I can tell when you're starting to take information away. All I've done and the things that I've studied in my life is looking at the ways imperialism, colonialism, and like lying governments work. Like that's all I've ever studied. That's all I've ever studied. I've studied how families lie, and I've studied how nations lie. That's all I've ever done. And so it just feels so simple when I break it down like that. It's like, bro, you can call me all the fucking crazy that you want to. I know I stand on information and evidence and experience. Like, call me what the fuck you want. And I guess but literally having to go through this process is what made me emboldened enough to be able to start standing on this shit now. And it's had to take this whole fucking dark night of the soul process and confronting all this shit to make it real enough to like be like, no, y'all cannot make me feel like I'm crazy. Like I refuse.
Well, and having studied all that stuff, here's a question. Do you have tips for people to identify propaganda? Like, is there something that you can say, hey, here's how you, right? Because like at this point, social media is so confusing. You see two articles and you're like, that says one thing, that says the other. I don't know who's telling the truth. How are my critical thinking skills?
I would say the first thing is to check your motherfucking self. Like, stuff is like, be like, stop believing that you're right. Stop being so goddamn self-assured in your opinion and your perspective. Like, I don't know, like, and I feel like even to get to that, I just feel like people are stuck in their rigidity because of fear. And so it's like, it's not even like, I could tell them motherfucking mitigations for days. It doesn't mean they're going to do it. Like, I also grew up in a lying-ass family that I was calling shit out. And it takes you being willing to confront yourself. Unless you're willing to confront yourself, you're not going to change the behavior. So it's like, I can come with all my bullet points to mitigation media about like what you should do and da-da-da, but unless you're willing to confront yourself, you're not going to be willing to confront the fucking terrifying world that we exist in right now, like in a realistic way.
Well, because like parents right now, they can't, like for a parent to read the research and then go, okay, well, for the past 2 years, I'd let my kid exist maskless and just go around and they've had COVID 4 times. Like for someone to really look at that, it's like you said, it's really scary, and it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of confidence to do it.
Infuriating.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And go back always critiquing myself or like always examining myself. But like I was talking to my friend who I was checking back and who I hadn't seen how long yesterday. Like I was not, before I left my position in higher ed, I was not courageous enough in that moment to show up in a mask and be in a leadership position at odds with the institutional stance on mitigations and blah 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 blah. I was not that person at that moment. I was incapable of meeting that moment in a way that I would love to have been able to have met that moment. But like I had in the face of that, I've had to learn from my shortcomings and my feelings and where I was not yet ready in a way that I wish I was. And like I feel like that's a similar thing as like a parent, like what I would imagine as somebody without kids, but like somebody's worked with young people his whole life, like you're gonna have to admit that you failed. And that's what my parents, like a lot of parents never do, is that you failed. You failed fucking miserably. Disastrously you failed. And like as only parents can do, like can fail. Like you failed harshly. Look at that shit. Look at that shit. For the sake of your children, look at that shit. Like literally, like if you want to be a good parent, admit that you failed constantly and that you're a failure at it. Like I feel like we could, like I'm not like as best as I can be an educator or counselor. I'm probably going to be failing at it more than I'm going to be succeeding at it. But I'm showing up because it's about accountability. If you just gonna deny a problem, you're never gonna be able to fix a problem. If you never admit that it's fucking there, like you got to admit your shortcomings. You got to admit and to that and be able to recover from that and like move from there. Like we all have failed the young people at this point. Every single adult has failed young people for the past 5 years. And like I'm an adult, I'm failing young people. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't. Like that's been one of the banes of my existence for the past couple of years, is feeling like I have all this information that feels too terrifying to show other people, because I'm being met with so much of their resistance. I feel like even more of like a building destroyer or like illusion destroyer by like, and I'm like confronted with the burden, like, is it my responsibility to do that? Like, I don't know. I feel like some people would for sure be like, hell fucking yeah. But it's also like, I don't know. Like, am I going to destroy you? I don't know. Like, is it going to destroy you to know the truth, reality?
I think there's a few things going on in my perspective there. Like one is like, hey, we can only carry so much, so we got to take care of ourselves. So it's like, it's not on us to fucking educate the world, right? It's not on us. Yeah. It's not on us to fix all of the wrong. Sometimes it does feel like it's on us to fix all the wrongs of the world, but it isn't, right? Like we need to give ourselves that grace and go, hey, like we're just single human beings on this earth trying to figure out how to connect to other people to spread a little bit of information, help, just like I want people's lives to be healthier. I want people's lives to be easier. I want people's lives to be full of more joy. Like these are things that I am hopeful for. And like people think I'm a doomer or I'm a pessimist because I'm a mitigator. But the truth is I'm an optimist because I believe that we can do these things to make a safer world for everyone. And I believe that with my whole heart.
Yeah.
And if I didn't believe it, I would give up with everybody else. And I'd just go, okay, well, I'm going to a concert tonight. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not, whatever. Who cares? YOLO. But YOLO never made sense to me. YOLO was always lemmings to me. YOLO was always jumping off the San Francisco Bridge to me. And so like, for me, I just go, okay, well, I'm still going to live these things that bring me joy. I'm still going to go to that concert. But I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm going to make sure that I don't bring COVID to there. And if I am, I'm wearing a mask and I've tested and, and like it's outdoors. So like, people are like, oh, you still mask outdoors? It's like, yeah, I mask everywhere there's a crowd. Guess what? I'm putting one on because at the very least, it stops me from having to think about math. I don't have to think about any risk. I just go,
man.
I'm comfortable in mask. And like, I now have more joy going to things than I did pre-pandemic because of my boundaries that I just have. And like, I'm able to just kind of release myself more and be in the moment more than I was pre-pandemic when all my anxieties were triggering of like, oh, do I care about what this person's thinking? Is that person thinking about me? Because now I'm like, gosh, you're looking at my mask and you're thinking about me while you're at this concert. You're not paying attention to the concert.
Yeah. Wow. That's real, man. That's so real. And I thought, and like bringing up the music and the artistry of it, like I really thought more artists would be on board with creating a different world and different possibilities and outlets and alternatives to. I thought that's what artistry was about. and like, but like I guess we're all having to come to terms with like a world that's been hyper steeped in capitalism for forever. And like, so artists had to fit into that mold and figure it out from there. And like, this is me giving a lot of grace to the artists and the active musicians, because goddamn, that ain't been how I've been feeling. But like, it's real though. It's like, I don't know. I have more grace now that it's like a year and a half of me struggling through this, to like where I was very enraged at a lot of people for a long time, where I have a little bit more spaciousness and understanding for how ferocious propaganda is and systemic oppression is, and all the forces that are bearing down on everybody right now, especially with all the bearing witness to genocide and all the things. So like, I'm having a little bit more spaciousness and just like for people, but like, I really was heavily disappointed in musicians and artists and just complicity with like, yeah, not. And this is why it gets me, because I hang around artists. I hang around like a lot of that activism and artistry is always overlapping, is always intertwined, is always fucking there. But like, I went from being around people who are talking about this shit every time we connected. I went in both work and personal life. I was around people that were talking about shit all the time. And then all of a sudden, they weren't. And I still was, and they weren't. I mean, how can you? I was tripping off this one. I was just like, I was in my daily check-ins at work with a bunch of other counselors. And we, motherfuckers was crying in them check-ins in the 2020, 2021.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, like back in, fuck it, I was working at Cal Berkeley, like, and yeah, and we was like checking in. Motherfuckers, it was like a lot of trauma about it. It was like deep, like the early page. Motherfuckers was scared and confused and everything, like they should still be. But like,
or well, not necessarily they should be, but or they should have processed it enough to now be able to manage it.
Yeah, nah, it's just I was around everybody in my life who was talking about this every day, and then all of a sudden they weren't, and I was like, that's always my first alarm. And then when I saw artists being willing to not look at shit, I'm just like, what the fuck is the point of art? And fuck art, like fuck art and artists. If like y'all are unwilling to like look at shit, like there's a cognitive dissonance and like a psychic spiritual chasm that grew between me and all this shit that was being put out, like purported to be activism and artistry and all, and like your opinions on shit and your expertise and like things that you got to express is all become so fucking putrid and meaningless and vapid and hollow in a world when you don't believe in the ongoing pandemic that's still ravishing people constantly. Like, I don't fuck with you or trust your shit if you don't have some kind of connection to reality in a certain type of way.
And to me, that all comes back to kind of the hyper-capitalism of survival, of these artists being people who need to survive in the end of the day and need to make money to pay their rent or their mortgage or put their kids to school or feed themselves and healthcare and all that stuff. It's like, right, I'm wearing an Idols sweatshirt and I'm wearing an Arcade Fire hat right now. And so like, yeah, do I have a lot of issues with these bands who go infinitely tour without speaking about any of this stuff? Yeah, it's hard on me as a fan to go, I still love you guys and I love the art you're putting out. And so like that cognitiveness for me to still enjoy my joy, I want to kind of connect that to your ability to still enjoy sports, which are a hyper capitalism, like to the worst degree of exploitation of human bodies for entertainment. Like, how do you grapple that?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to, and this is good, it goes back to this shit, because I hate when I just land on like dead harsh at people. It's so easy for me to go down that path, man. But it's like, it's the most hyper militaristic type of shit that you could do. It's like American football. Like they do the flyovers with military jets. You know what I'm saying? Like they have the flags waving and they banned Colin Kaepernick for taking the knee. You know what I'm saying? Like which was a concession to was it like a Marine, like a Navy SEAL or somebody who was like, well, maybe if you just don't sit down, you take a knee, like that'll be more like you're showing people that you still care about veterans and shit. Like, man, fuck everybody. They do what the fuck you need to do to protest this bitch ass fucking country, goddamn it. Like, do what the fuck you need to do.
I don't know if you ever saw, he had a Netflix show in the middle of like 2021, maybe. That was like a 6-episode show that it resonated a lot with me because it was about basically him coming to terms with just being kind of a body being pushed around these different sports and things and be going like, oh, I'm literally just a body to these people. And it helped me understand my own relationship with sports had been for me.
Yeah. And I mean, I also just grew up in a sports family. Like both my parents were coaches and like players throughout like college and semi-pro and pro. There's all these different things. And so we grew up playing all the different sports, watching. I mean, I wanted to play for the A's, the Warriors, and the Niners growing up. Like I knew I was going to be in that like professional athlete and all that kind of stuff. And also sports, because of that, sports has helped me like kind of like shape my take on like coaching and leadership and teamwork and collaboration and stuff like that, because I've been so informed by it throughout my life. That was one way that I engage with it. But like also one of the main parts is like, and let me not neglect the just sports addiction, but like whatever, you know what I'm saying? I've been watching them my whole life, consuming my whole life, and fucking have like the male cathartic experience when I get to scream about that shit. And one of the ways that we're allowed to do that in society. But then just like also my life is full of tragic men and tragic males and tragic men. I was like, I can't just abandon all these traumatized, fucked up, harmful men. And like, I come from a lineage of harmful men. Like, I just like, because I come from men. I'm male. I'm raised in a cis hetero patriarchal fucking imperialist, all this shit ass world. And also I have to believe there is some kind of redemptive roads back to like all redemptive love and shit. It's as like somebody that also like wants to believe in abolition and alternatives and shit. And it's like, yeah, like the way that we've been punitive throughout time has not led to motherfuckers being less harmful to this point. So maybe we could think of other ways, you know? So it's like, it's a way for me to stay connected to men and in a way, like, and participate in that kind of way. It's like, I always had this idea of like starting up a fan club, like a 49ers fandom of just like called like 49ers fans against imperialism or something. Just to like, because it's always because like somebody who like fell in love and like with hip hop, like just was raised in it and like became a rapper and a musician. And it's just like, I've always had to engage with popular culture in a particular type of way to try to remain tapped in and tuned in to what the fuck is going on. And so popular culture consists of sport, and it consists of fucking music and entertainment. I've always kind of had my like reaching that shit to stay connected, to be like, to not be too oblivious as I aged, and fucking genres that age you out early. You know what I'm saying? Sports and music and shit, they age you out. So it's like, historically.
I think you should make that
group. I mean, there's all kinds of ways.
I think you should make that group. I think you should make that group, 49er fans against imperialism. I think you should make that group and culture that community that you want to be part of.
Yeah, dancing on the brink.
All right, we're going to take a little break right here. This feels like a good stopping point. If you liked this episode, we're going to split it into 2. And so go find episode 2 with Greg right now and check that one out. Thanks for listening to Mitigation Media. This podcast is produced by myself, Dustin Drury, and Jerry Lynn, with graphics and additional support from Angela Inferreira. All the music in episode 1 was thanks to William White and Glass Beach. The music you hear in today's episode is courtesy of our guest, Gregory Mitchell, aka Buddha G Bahía. Keep an eye on @_trapalism for when he drops his record, Dancing on the Brink.